Here we go. It's time for our Week 9 six-pack of picks, some of our favorite games and our favorite picks for Week 9 of the NFL schedule. We'll try to get bottom of the Thursday nighter. How good and how bad are the Houston Texans and the New York Jets? Coming at you right now.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love our everydayers. Appreciate all of you out there that hang out with us every day here on Peacock and Williamson and on the Locked On Podcast Network. And if you're new to the show, make sure you subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Today's episode of P&W is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. They're screwing with us this week, Matt.
Yeah.
At the six pack, and it always starts with the Thursday nighter. And the 2-6 New York Jets are favored by 2 points over the Houston Texans that are coming in at 6-2. And the Texans, I would argue, the 6-2 a little flimsy with some of the games they've played and the way they've played with some of the injuries they have right now at wide receiver. The New York Jets have been flimsy all season long, though. And Matt, we can't figure out the Thursday night games. I think we get it wrong every single week. And they're setting a trap for us here, but I don't know how the Jets are favored in this game.
I don't either. I mean, they're as desperate could be. They're at home, short week. That's about all I can come up with. I mean, I understand Nico's not in the lineup and Diggs is not in the lineup, and that is substantial. And watching Tank Dell, I don't think he's himself. I mean, he had a major injury last year. He got shot since then as well. So I think they're short on weaponry. But when Mixon's there, they run the ball well. They're definitely a better team than the Jets. I know we're going to have a conversation of who really are they better than or worse than. I mean, like, where would we power rank the Texans? I think that's an interesting conversation. But do you agree that both these teams kind of feel like something's missing this year?
Yes, and something's felt like it's been a little bit more missing with the Jets, and you know, maybe the Jets' weaponry is better right now from a health standpoint on offense, but that hasn't meant that their offense has been good anyway recently.
No,
and so is the short week advantage enough over a team that, even though they've been a little flimsy in their 6-2 record, they're still better. And you look at all the metrics, they're still better. You look at DVOA, they're still better. In fact, according to DVOA right now, I was a little surprised. The Houston Texans are 7 overall in DVOA. They're 2 on defense, behind only the Minnesota Vikings defensively with DVOA, but they're 20th on offense, which is going to take even more of a hit with those players out. The New York Jets are down at 24 DVOA, and the thing that you thought they would carry them is their defense. They're 20th ranked defensive DVOA and 25th ranked offensive DVOA. So they're worse on both sides of the ball than the Houston Texans.
You kind of beat me to it. I was going to say it might come as a shock that Houston's defense is noticeably better than their offense this year. And I was going to quote Aaron Schatz, and you just went to DVOA, and you beat me to it. Like I said, that there's a couple things that Football Outsiders has taught us is defense is less predictive year to year than offense. And I think that's holding up with the Jets. I mean, that's pretty much the same group, give or take, but it's clearly a tier lower or 2 tiers lower than it was last year. So counting on a tier 1 defense 5, 6, 7 years in a row is really hard to do. I mean, history shows that it doesn't hold up. And then I was going to quote Aaron Schatz too on the plexiglass principle, where he invented that term. But I mean, Houston 2 years ago was second pick in the draft. They were a bad team, and they took a humongous Mother May I step forward last year. And 9 out of 10 times when that happens, you take a step back. You know, I mean, you start playing more primetime games. You play a first place schedule. Everyone knows who you are. Maybe you got some bounces that good year that you don't get in your second year. We're seeing some injuries. So maybe this is closer to what the organization is in their build, which has come a long way in 2 years, a very, very long way. So that being said, I'm falling for the trap, though. I want to talk about where the Texans rank, but if you're going to give me 2 points against the Jets and I get the better quarterback, and when Mixon's in the game, they run the ball well, and we just talked about their defense is probably the best unit in the game tonight, I'm taking it, man.
Yeah, I am too. So we're both falling into the trap. We're probably going to get another Thursday night game wrong. The Jets are going to show us that they're actually still in it. But I think, it just doesn't feel right with the New York Jets. Primetime game, they lose here, and then they have a few extra days to figure out maybe if they are sellers at the trade deadline. That's the way I think this is going to go. And
I agree.
CJ Stroud, I'm betting on D'Amico Ryans and that defense, and the Houston Texans. They're still a better team, even injured, than the New York Jets have been fully healthy.
I trust their coaching staff a lot more too. I mean, this guy's coached 3 games.
It hasn't gone great.
It
wasn't going great before either.
I mean, interim head coaches are usually in over their head.
So, noting all of that, where do the Houston Texans rank? Because I did my power rankings for the Locked On Network this morning, and I was kind of surprised how many teams I put ahead of the Houston Texans. And maybe I'll regret that. I don't know. We'll see. But they're not favored against the New York Jets that are 2-6 right now. So maybe that tells us something about where they should be power ranked right now. They're tied for the second best record in football right now, third best record in football, second best in the AFC. Would you agree? Let's do this quickly. Would you agree that in the AFC, power rankings wise, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, the Steelers would be ahead of the Houston Texans?
Yes. Is there anyone else in the AFC?
I would not put anybody else ahead of them in the AFC. Not the Broncos, not the Chargers, not the Colts, Bengals, Dolphins, Browns.
Okay. So at best, they're 5th. I mean, there's 4 teams in the AFC ahead of them.
Then you go to the NFC, and the Lions are ahead of them clearly.
Yes. Yep.
And then there's questions. Commanders, Falcons, Niners, Packers. I would put the Packers ahead of them.
Definitely the Packers.
The healthy Jordan Love. We'll see. He believes he can play this week. We're going to get to that game tomorrow. The Eagles, I think, are right there with them. So, at 6-2, I think they're probably around 8 for me.
I think I'm even lower.
9-10, because to be honest with you, they're not favored against the Jets. If they went to go play the 49ers, would the 49ers be favored? I think they might be.
I think they would be, yeah.
I think healthy with Christian McCaffrey Niners that we're going to see potentially in Week 10. I think they might be favored ahead of the Houston Texans. So, they're barely hanging on in the top 10, I think, at 6-2 even.
So in the NFC, I would have the Eagles ahead of them. I think they're playing quite well now. I feel like they've kind of turned a corner. I'm still hesitant to give Washington credit, but their offense is awesome, and I think you have to put Washington ahead of them. I mean, they've clearly had a better year.
They're very even for me because I still can't fully believe in Washington just because of their roster and the state it's in. Will they get figured out at some point? But clearly they're playing good ball, and they're probably playing better than the Texans. But definitely. I just have more questions about them on defense, and but obviously, the scheme, and Cliff's done a great job, and obviously Jaden Daniels has done an amazing job as a rookie there, and it's made everything on offense look a lot better. I still question if the defense is, big time playoff team ready.
I mean, if Aladdin came out of the bottle and said, Matt, I can tell you either Washington or Houston is going to end up in the Super Bowl, I would say, oh, it's Houston. But if I'm doing power ranks on Halloween, happy Halloween to everyone, I would say Washington's the better team today.
With no Collins, no Diggs.
Right. Yeah. As they are on Halloween 2024.
Okay. Yeah, I'll buy that.
I'm also putting the Niners ahead of them, but no one else in that division. I'm not putting anyone from the South, but I think Atlanta's in the neighborhood.
Okay.
And I'm putting 3 teams in the North. I'm putting Green Bay, Detroit, and still Minnesota. I know it's been like a rough couple weeks or whatever, but I still think they're a better team than Houston.
So you got Houston, 10 or 11?
12, something like that. 10, 11 at most.
11,
4 AFC teams and 6, I think, NFC teams.
Interesting. Okay.
But I'm picking them tonight, and I'm going to regret it. I know I'm getting that game wrong no matter what.
We could do the Jets too. They're in my bottom third. They're way down the list for me. Just quickly, they're ahead of the Panthers, the Giants, the Saints. I think the Cowboys and the Jets are very similar for me. The Jets roster is better on paper, but they're not playing better, and the Cowboys are playing bad. Rams, I think, are right in there too with those teams.
I'd take the Rams over both of them, but Cowboys versus Jets is tough.
And then in the AFC, I'd take them over the Titans, the Patriots, the Jaguars, the Raiders, and that's it. I'm big on the Browns right now. We're gonna hear you in today's six pack. I'm all in on the Browns, the Winston-led Browns.
Jets or Colts with Flacco?
Well, the way they've played under Flacco, the Colts. But if this was the Colts coming into town, I might buy the Jets as the favorite a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
The Texans.
Jets or Dolphins with Tua?
Oh, that's close. They're also very similar, underperforming even with Tua now. But I would bet on the Dolphins turning it around more than the Jets. I just haven't seen enough from the Jets.
Trust the coach more, and I might trust Tua more than Rodgers even.
The Jets should be better. Hugely,
they should be better. This is a really disappointing year,
which is why I got to take the Houston Texans. I mean, come on, getting points with the Texans against the Jets. See if we can get one of these Thursday nighters right, man.
Actually, throughout tonight, the thing that I feel strongest about is the under, because I do think even though the Jets defense went backwards, both these O lines are kind of a mess.
Yeah,
I think there'll be a lot of sacks.
Game, not a lot of time prep. Yeah, I'm with you.
There's a lot of pass rushers in this game. So I kind of like the under in this.
All right, there we go.
More than picking the team.
One down in our Week 9 six-pack of picks. Both of us taking the Houston Texans over the New York Jets, getting a couple points on that one. Dallas, Atlanta, Las Vegas, Cincy. We've got the some separation in the NFC West with the Niners on by going into the Cards, Rams, Seahawks, and Chargers, Cleveland Browns, which I think is a super interesting matchup coming up in today's Week 9 six-pack. Today's episode of Peacock Williamson brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby. It's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all the tailgates and touchdown celebrations and agonizing overtimes, which is why they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. The energy shot made just for the super fans like you, the fans who are first in the parking lot and who are last to leave. We see you. And you know what else gives whatever team you root for fan fuel? It's moments when there's a Hail Mary late in the game, right? When you get the big sack on third down and when your team's driving to win a football game. Those are the moments, and you got to be fueled up for those moments this Sunday. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, getting your game day to-do list ready that might be a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with the 5 Hour Energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com, shipped nationwide. All right, here we go. Getting into the rest of our Week 9 six-pack, and it is the Dallas Cowboys at the Atlanta Falcons, and the Falcons at home are favored by a field goal here. And by the way, all of our weekly lines that we reference here on Peacock and Williamson come from our friends at FanDuel.com. More on FanDuel in a minute, but the Falcons favored by 3 at home against the Dallas Cowboys, man.
It's a pretty good line for me. I think Atlanta's offense is really good right now, though, and I'm not exactly sure where Dallas hangs their hat. I do think Bijan and Algier will probably run all over the Cowboys, and I don't think the Cowboys will take advantage of a not so great Falcons defense. But Dallas is desperate. I mean, this is a game they absolutely have to have. I think I'm still laying the points. I like Atlanta here.
I love Atlanta here. This is an
Yeah.
easy one for me. The Atlanta Falcons, despite their defensive woes, it still pales in comparison to the Dallas Cowboys woes. And, watching a lot of Dallas Cowboys over the course of last week and watching them against the Niners, that team's awful. They're not a good football team now. No Micah Parsons. They can't stop anybody. The pass game, the run game, their offensive line is bad, and it's making Dak and CeeDee Lamb look worse. And CeeDee even had a couple of touchdowns where he's completely uncovered, and he's still not enough. And when you're gifted a touchdown in that game last week, it could have been a bigger route for the 49ers against the Cowboys. And I don't trust anything that's going on with the Cowboys, and so I like the Falcons a lot. I do have a Falcons note though with how bad their defense has been playing, and how they still win and find a way to to stay on the right side of the scoreboard. So the Falcons won last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This relayed from Next Gen Stats via Greg Rosenthal. It's a good stat though to kind of show you what's going on, and it's really similar to what's going on with the Dallas Cowboys. The Falcons, except for the Cowboys, are losing more than the Falcons. The Falcons won Sunday despite 0 quarterback hits or sacks on 51 Baker Mayfield dropbacks.
Wow.
They are 5-3 despite being dead last in sacks, only 6 sacks all year, and dead last in pressure percentage per Next Gen Stats. So they're not getting after the quarterback at all. Neither are the Dallas Cowboys. So we talked about the under on Thursday night. This is the over game, I think, for me with the Falcons and the Cowboys.
I definitely agree on a lot of points. And what's interesting about these teams from a pass rush perspective is Dallas has been at the top of the league in sacks pretty much during the whole Micah Parsons era. You can explain away while they're not rushing the passer well now. No Lawrence, no Parsons, obviously. Atlanta has been looking for pass rush for a decade. I mean, every year it's the same. Like,
they can't figure it out. They're throwing like some second-round picks in there. They're not quite working out.
Trade for Judon. He hasn't done anything. Doesn't matter what they do, but they do not rush the passer ever. I remember 2 years ago when T.J. Watt won Defensive Player of the Year, he had more sacks than the Falcons.
I want to go to DVOA to see where these teams are defensively. So Dallas is worse, even still without the pass rush. Dallas is much worse than Atlanta. Atlanta's 21 DVOA defensively. Dallas Cowboys are 29 out of 32.
Okay, yeah, but points should be plentiful in a dome.
Yep. You're taking the Falcons as well?
Yeah, I am. I feel better about it now than even when we started the conversation.
This is, well, I think the Raiders are already. I think the Raiders should already pack it up. But on the background of the podcast here, if you're watching this on YouTube, Jets, Raiders, and Bengals, I think are interesting teams because I think if any of those teams lose this week, I think they've got to look at themselves long and hard in the mirror. I think even if the Raiders win, I think they still got to look at themselves long and hard in the mirror. And the Bengals, though, this is really big for them. So we've got the Raiders at the Bengals here. The Bengals are favored by 7. And this was tough for me last week because the Raiders were big underdogs against a team against a good team. Now they're big underdogs against a bad team. And it's hard for me not to take the points here. So can you talk me out of not taking the points with the Raiders in this one?
I want to throw one thing into what you just said because I think the Bengals, Jets, and to me, Dolphins, I think the Raiders are already sellers. I mean, frankly, I think if the Panthers didn't exist, we might be talking about the Raiders as the worst team in the league. So I think the Dolphins, Jets, and Bengals are at a win or sell point of the season. I don't like Cincy's defense at all, but I think Burrow and Higgins is questionable. But side note, we talked about this in the offseason and said, hypothetically, since they're ignoring Higgins' contract, what if it's week 9 and he's got something kind of bothering him and doesn't want to put bad tape out there for when he hits free agency? What's the motivation for him to play? Yeah. Well, when you kind of hang your players out to dry, that kind of is the consequences,
Interesting. Yeah. And especially post trade deadline.
Right. I mean, maybe he gets traded by Tuesday, but they don't ever trade anybody. And
yeah, that's true. I always forget that about the Bengals. They're just such a organizational, not make moves team.
I think they just ask too much or don't do it. I think I'm going to still lay the points, though, and it's just a bet on Burrow. I just think Burrow tears that team up.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to take the points. The Raiders are awful. They're
really bad,
bad. And offensively, they just can't get anything done right now.
No, they don't have a lot of weapons. They don't run the ball. I mean, but Bengal D is bad. Crosby will get sacks.
We've got a nearly a four-way tie. We've got three teams at 4-4 in the NFC West, one team at 3-4. Niners have a bye, but we're going to check in with Chicago at Arizona and then the Rams at Seattle. Maybe see a little separation here in the NFC West. Get that picture a little clearer after 9 weeks. And the Chargers and Cleveland Browns, which is one of my sneaky favorite games of the week in week 9. Next. All of the lines that we talk about here on Peacock and Williamson every single episode and across the entire Locked On Podcast Network come from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And get ready right now to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. In-game live betting, all the props you can shake a stick at, passing yards, rushing yards, who's going to win the Super Bowl, who's going to win postseason awards. World Series is over, but you can start betting on the 2025 baseball season if you want. And the NFL or the NBA and the NHL are also getting cooking right now. And you can find all of that action at FanDuel. And when you get a little hunch in the middle of a game and you want to check out the latest stats and view live play-by-play and so much more, you can find it all on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win on your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. The final segment of this episode is brought to you by Built Rewards. Listen up, renters. Ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? It's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. That's where Built Rewards comes in. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points toward a flight or hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 plus hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them toward future rent payments. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. Pay rent hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. Earn points by paying rent now when you go to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL to start earning points with your rent payments today. All right, here we go. Let's finish up this Week 9 6-pack of picks. We're on the same page. We're very different last week, and we still ended up being painfully 500 with our picks, even with our disagreeing more than usual last week with our picks, Matt. And shout out to the listeners that are keeping track for us. But we're on the same page today. We both have taken Houston, Atlanta, and Cincinnati so far. We've got the Chicago Bears at the Arizona Cardinals. It's the Cards at home that are favored by 1.5 over the Chicago Bears. Two very even teams. This is a tough one, Matt.
This is a tough one. I'm still a big believer in the Bears defense, though. And I like where the Arizona offense has gone quite a bit. And I do think Caleb Williams is a little bit better than he's looked of late. And they have weapons. I don't know that Arizona's got a great home field advantage. So if you're going to give me points in what I think is a pretty even game, I'm definitely going to take it in this one.
I mean, yeah, that's right where I'm at. I feel exactly the same about it. I think offensively, they're not too far apart from each other. I think Arizona's clicking a little bit better right now, but Caleb Williams week to week, as you would expect with the rookies, kind of had some ups and downs, but it's getting better, and you can see it with Caleb Williams. I mean, Bears fans don't have to get worried that they made the wrong pick or something with the #1 pick, which is all the talk after the game last week against the Hail Mary Jaden Daniels led Washington Commanders. But the defense is just so much better for the Bears, and that's easily enough for me to overcome the 1.5 points there and actually get 1.5 points at the Arizona Cardinals. So yeah, give me the Chicago Bears. All right. So we're 4 for 4 agreeing on these.
Yeah, I like that.
How about the Los Angeles Rams at the Seattle Seahawks? I'm going to tell you where I'm at on this. I think you like the Rams more than I do.
Okay.
And since I like the Seahawks more than you do, and I'm getting points at home in a tough place to play, Like, we've only seen one good game of the Rams, right? Like, okay, it was nice last week, but they still are a very incomplete football team. So I'm going to take the points and take the Seattle Seahawks at home against the familiar foe Los Angeles Rams.
Part of me's doing it just to be different, but I am going to take the Rams. I feel like they should be getting 1.5 though in Seattle. Like I know they've played there a million times, and it's not going to phase McVay and Stafford, but it is still a pretty distinct home field advantage. But when Kupp and Nakua and Stafford are all healthy, this is one of the best offenses in the league, and I think they'll score points on anyone. And I don't like the protection for Seattle. And while I'm not big on the Rams D, I do like their young pass rushers. I think Jared Verse is probably defensive rookie of the year at this point.
Yep.
But I don't love the line, but I think the Rams are going to win the game, so I'll lay the points. And I want to be different.
And and the Rams are sneaky good, or I mean, the Seahawks are sneaky good offensively, and I think they can just be average defensively, and be fine. DK Metcalf, better trend right now than when the week started, so we'll see how that ends up going for him, which could make a difference. But they've got other weapons there in Seattle as well, and I think these two teams, and we're seeing this a lot. I think 1 week makes a huge difference with these two teams. I think Seattle last week would have been favored by at least a field goal in this game, but walloped by the Bills. Good team, by the way, that came into town and beat them. And then the Rams looks much better than expected with everyone getting back. And I think that really changed how people feel about these two teams. But I'm not going to let that 1 week change my mind that much. Even with Kupp and Nakua back, I like Seattle in this one, especially getting points at home.
I like how you said that, because we can very easily forget, and I'm sure bettors do as well, that this is very much a week-to-week league. And what you did last week doesn't always translate to what's going to happen next week. You and I might get together on Monday and be like, maybe the Rams are going to trade Cooper Kupp now. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what happens in the NFL. It's chaos. You see something 1 week, you should almost just bet against it happening twice in a row.
Right. Like, oh, they got it all figured out. Maybe they're a contender down. But Monday we'll be like, oh, man, they should trade Cooper Kupp.
That'd be interesting. Two teams that played where one team lost the week before and the other team won. I bet more often than not the team that lost wins and the team that won lost the next week.
Especially with the spread.
Right. Yes.
It goes from a 4-point game to a 7-point game or whatever,
I just don't think the Rams should be favored over a lot of teams on the road. I think that's just a mistake.
I totally understand that side of it.
The final game in our 6-pack for week 9 is the Los Angeles Chargers at the Cleveland Browns. Another home dog situation and another 1.5 points here for the Cleveland Browns. And I am
literally a home dog.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. This is my favorite pick of the week. This is my lock of the week. I love the Browns here. The Browns are a completely different football team than they were 2 weeks ago. Better at quarterback. They were better on defense with their quarterback. They just beat the Baltimore Ravens last week, and they look like a team that should be on par with them. And we saw what this team looked like last year without Deshaun Watson. You take Deshaun Watson out of the picture, Nick Chubb is back. They have too good of a defense to play like they were. This is a new team, a new slate, a new season started last week for the Cleveland Browns, in my opinion. I'm not going to say they're going to go make a run to the playoffs right now, but I think they might be the thorn in the side of some teams, including a team that is trying to make a playoff run in the Chargers, who I don't think have as good of a roster top to bottom, even though they do have a better quarterback still. At home, Cleveland getting points. I love this one. Cleveland Browns, they're back, baby.
I hear you. I mean, I'm sure that stadium will have a much different feel than it did a month ago. I mean, those fans will be energetic, psyched for Jameis. And I'm with you on the Browns defense. I mean, I think it could easily go back to being a top 3 unit. And I think the Chargers D is good. So I like the under. I mean, to be very honest, I think this is going to be a slugfest. But I'm going to give the edge to Herbert. I think Herbert's playing incredibly well right now. And just because he's not throwing 40 times, people don't seem to notice. 2 young receivers, though, that I'm really big on this game. If you're not sure if you should pick up Tillman in your fantasy league, the answer is you should. And I would trade for McConkey right now if you can. I think he's ready to explode.
I'll finish up with this McConkey note. Yards per route versus press man coverage if you remove screens and scramble drills. So just to isolate the true routes in pure drop back situations. Yards per route versus press man coverage. Number 1 in the NFL, A.J. Brown, 6.5 yards per route versus press man coverage. Number 2 in the NFL, Ladd McConkey, 5.3. Then it's Justin Jefferson. Then it's CeeDee Lamb. Then another rookie, Malik Neighbors, at 3.9.
Big time receivers. I mean, that's a great measure of, are you a big time guy or not? Can you get off press man consistently and win? It's the hardest thing to do in the league. Might have been the first lesson I learned in scouting. Watch every snap of college players versus press man, because you just don't see much of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a misnomer. I mean, maybe it's the color of his skin. Maybe he's because he's a little bit diminutive. He's not Wes Welker, folks. He is an all over the field outside receiver. And I think he's a really good one.
Could be in for a big second half of the year for him and Tillman on the other side for the Cleveland Browns. But yeah, Ladd McConkey, I like seeing him. Again, when it comes to the rookies, you want us, because the scouting reports are glowing for every prospect. Go read a scouting report on a top 50 player, and they sound like they're going to be a star in the league, right? They sound like they're going to be really, really good. So you just want to see the player play to the scouting report, and we're seeing that in Ladd McConkey. Yeah. 2 touchdowns last week. And so that's fun to see.
I think he's separating by a wide margin as their number one, where early in the season it wasn't that clear.
With his size, though, I hope he can stay healthy, because that kind of dogged him in college as well. He's getting a lot bigger target share there, and he's earning it. All right, that's our 6-pack of picks. Let us know what you think at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL. Make sure you drop in on YouTube, make a comment there, and subscribe. And you can subscribe wherever you are listening to this podcast. And Matt and I back tomorrow. We'll finish up making the rest of our picks, covering whatever news there is to cover around the NFL right here, Peacock and Williamson.